Hello and welcome everyone to this EQUA2 webinar. My name is Joe Nevas. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar today. Before I hand over to Sean, I felt it would be helpful to introduce EQUA2, so you know a bit more about us. And we've focused solely in the construction industry for 30 years. Our industry-leading solutions are designed specifically for contractors across all sectors, and we add, I would say, well over 200 new clients every year. We're fast approaching 3,000 clients that we support on a daily basis. Also thought it'd be helpful to show you a small selection of our clients that we work with, and these range from traditional businesses, emerging companies, market leaders. There's quite a few that you can see here. And essentially what we do is to help our clients to modernize their business systems. And often this means replacing multiple systems that don't talk to each other and digitizing their complex business processes, manual processes as well. So I'll be contacting each individually post-event. And for now, I'll hand over to Sean. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joe. What this session is all about is our EVision product, which is obviously based on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. It is a cloud solution. It can also go on premise for those people that still require a solution put on a server. But most clients these days are now looking at cloud, and that's what we're going to look at. So I'll take you through some slides, just some brief slides, just to give you an idea of some of the features, and then we'll really dive into the software and look at like some of the processes from a contracting or a house builder or a service type company would go through using our solution. And obviously, if you've got any questions, there is a question box on the right hand side. You can drop any questions in there, and if we get time at the end, we'll try and answer them. But hopefully I'll show you quite a lot of the software, give you a flavour of what EVision can do. So obviously it's based in 365 Business Central, which obviously means from your point of view, it is a role-based type solution, which means you'll have a finance role, you'll have a commercial role, you'll have a site manager role, you know, you'll have an accounts payable role. All those different roles, it'll be what they get to see on their day-to-day job on the screens in EVision. The other key thing for you is obviously it fully integrates with Office 365, so your Outlook, your Excel, your Word, all of those standard features come with it. You'll also see there's some integration with Teams for those people that are now using Microsoft Teams. And then there's obviously some other advanced ones further down the line that we'll look at and show some of the screens on. The other key thing for you now is obviously multiple access points, whether you access it because it's a cloud solution through a browser. You can also access it on a phone or a tablet, or again, if you're using Microsoft SharePoint, you can actually, you know, publish a lot of the pages and a lot of the screens out of EVision into SharePoint and let people access it in SharePoint. Obviously, still requiring access into, you know, Business Central EVision with the license required. It will also give you Dynamics 365 integration for CRM. It does have its own CRM module. It will also talk to, and I'll show you some of these screens, Power BI dashboards that we can publish on the role center. So you can see the top one there. There's an actual one with a chart Power BI reports at the bottom, which will actually, you know, means you can publish Power BI charts on your EVision role centers, and you can interact with them, you know, filter the data, see the information out of the system. And then if you're using the full 365 suite, you may be looking at things where you're doing your own Power Apps or using Microsoft Flow to create workflows around other features in the business. Just to give you a look at the feel of some of the devices, just so you can see what it looks like on a phone, tablet, and the web browser, and also just to cover off that it'll work on iOS and Android phone devices, and obviously it works on the Windows platform in terms of the web browser. In terms of that, and the other thing to make you clear about is obviously the look and the feel. So you can see it looks like a Microsoft product, it interacts like a Microsoft product. You know, it has tiles, it has lists. We can hide columns just like Excel. We can widen the columns just like Excel. it has integration with Outlook. We'll look at that a little bit. We'll show you what it can do in there. And again, the little phones at the bottom will show you the tiles that are relevant to a QS in terms of what they're doing. So technically on your phone, you could actually run the system. You could actually raise subcontract orders, subcontractor payments. You could do contract sales. You could do purchase orders. All those things. It's got those capabilities. In reality, more people will use probably the web client and the browser, which means your laptop breaks, you can jump onto somebody else's machine and you can still access and do your job. All right. In terms of some of the information that you can see, it's important to understand that the charts that we'll see on the role centers are interactive. They're not just pretty pictures. They will integrate, they will drill down into transactions that are making up those charts that you see on the screen. So it's quite powerful in terms of you configuring, setting up that role center relevant to your business in terms of what that user sees. And that role center on there is more about some CRM features, so opportunity tracking. So it has a contact management module where we'll create contacts, log opportunities, convert them to jobs when we win them, but also maintain PQQ information around suppliers, subcontractors, and even store customer data. In terms of automation and workflow and approvals, there's two options you'll have, and we'll show you one of them as well. Business Central comes with standard workflows, and they could be things for approving journals, payments, invoices, subcontractor orders, those sorts of types of transactions. And you can create different levels of security. You can have hierarchy in terms of values. You could have group approvals. You could have a dedicated approver. You could allow the user to select a purchaser that they need to approve that document. And all of those can be directed to those devices. And you can see more people may be approving transactions on the mobile phone because they're out and about. They're not always sitting at home or at their desk in the office. So they can do all that. And the other side of the approvals is Microsoft Flow. That allows you to create workflows outside of Business Central and direct them to different routes outside of the solution. But they still obviously need access into Business Central to approve it. But you'll see actually how that workflow approval also integrates with Teams, and we'll get notifications in Teams that I've got transactions to approve, rather than just getting an email to say, oh, you've got to log in and approve this transaction. The pop-up comes in Teams. So if you're looking at using Teams in your business now, and you've rolled it out, this is quite a good, powerful way of actually interacting with EVision and Business Central. In terms of the personalization, it's important to understand, because obviously from a demo point of view, I might have lots of things on the screen that you don't need to do your job, but you can understand that you can then personalize these to your business needs and take things off. You can take the tiles off, the charts off, the fields off, the pages off that you're not using. All of those you can organize, you can sort, and you can make it tailored to what you want to roll out to your business user for EVision. And it's not a take off, you take it and that's what you get. It allows you to give that a little bit of customization in terms of the look and the feel of what you get to see. Obviously, underneath all of that, it is worth mentioning there is standard permissions and group permissions that you could grant people in terms of accessing the relevant parts of the system. Obviously, in terms of the Power BI integration, you can just see I just brought up a bit of a clearer screen for you. That Power BI chart can be published on there. It's not just one chart. You can have a library of Power BI charts. The Power BI charts, if you know about Power BI, doesn't necessarily mean the data has to exist in EVision. It could exist, in another system, in an Excel spreadsheet, but it means I can access the data and see the graphical presentation of what I need to see relevant to that. So if we need a more director view of life, you could just give them more charts on their role center. We're just Power BI charts so they can just interact on the key KPIs that they're interested in, not necessarily the transactions of what invoices have we got to approve and all those sorts of things. For those people that want to do SharePoint, like I mentioned, that just shows you, you can actually publish a page out of EVision directly into SharePoint and embed it in there. You obviously would need a little bit of SharePoint skills to do this work, but in simple terms, you can basically copy a URL because it's a web client. and that would give you sufficient links for people to log in, and obviously it will take into account your login and access in EVision anyway. We'll always put this slide up because it's worth people understanding, what EVision is and what other modules you get as part of the solution, and what other potential modules you could look at that we have from an Equa2 point of view in terms of this solution. So the dark blue boxes are what Business Central comes out of the box. The light blue boxes are what we added in as the EVision elements. Now, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between any of the two because it's just seamless. And it's worth noting, and I'll show you this anyway, that obviously EVision is an actual app for Business Central, and it is available in the App Store. And you'll see, those other apps are available for other elements that were added in as part of the enhancements to utilize it. But it's there. You can see we've got an advanced contract ledger, we've got subcontractor ledgers, contract sales, external plant, internal plant, CVRs. We deal with e-commerce, EDI, XML files. We do OCR. We have a solution for that. We have the payroll solution, and obviously we have reporting capabilities. But then on the right-hand side, we have some additional modules that feed data directly back in to EVision and Business Central, depending on what you want to do. So obviously, the service scheduling one is more about a service management planning board, because obviously we've got service contracts and service orders in EVision, but we need to drag and drop and schedule work, have the mobile device for the field workers to sign off, take pictures. All of that capability is available in there. We'll have an estimating package, pre and post contract, pre-contract being an estimating solution, post contract being commercial. And post contract's more about the commercial side of managing the variations, repackaging, submitting applications to the client, looking at the valuations that are coming in from subcontractors, and the client valuations will automatically create the contract sales transaction in EVision, so there's no need to rekey the data in there. So if you're interested in that, it's definitely worth talking to about looking at that part of the solution. And then obviously the last ones are our house building options in terms of land, build, sales, and customer care. So we do have a full house building suite for those people that are into house building. And again, the build module creates purchase orders, creates subcontract orders in EVision, finance process, the delivery notes, or site process delivery notes, put the invoices on from finance, pass the costs and things back into build. And it has tick sheets and all those sorts of capabilities. So there's lots of things available in there. So it was always worth showing you, so you've got a full understanding, because I clearly won't be able to demonstrate all of these modules in this short webinar today. Right, so what we're really going to look at and why people look at our solution is around the processes and the steps that they take in their business to reach the end goal. And what we're looking at is, obviously we have an estimating solution, but everybody will have an estimating solution somewhere along the line where you've tendered, you've won the job, you've created your first budget, you might re-tender it, repackage it up, and you have a revised budget. And then fundamentally that budget becomes a budget in EVision. And there's lots of ways we can put the budget in, and I'm going to go and show you how we can do these sorts of things. And then from that budget, we'll start raising various transactions. So from a subcontractor point of view, we might start raising subcontract orders. We'll record progress and variations against them. We'll receive an application, and then we'll obviously from the application process the payments, deal with the CIS return and all of those features out of that side. Then on the other side of it, we'll obviously do materials and maybe plant, again, where we'll maybe raise plant requisitions, potentially, or material requisitions, or, we'll just create purchase orders directly in relation to those. We'll obviously have, a three-way match capability of site recording delivery notes, or an admin in finance or something doing it on there. There's a specific role we have that does this job, and again, obviously the invoice matching part of that process will happen. And then on the other side of it, there's the client side of things. The billing side, we might create contract sales orders and manage variations as separate orders, but fundamentally we'll create an application, a certificate, an invoice in EVision, and you can decide which job requires which transaction. You're not forced into doing all three. So if you do a certain job and they say, oh, you only need to do a certificate and an invoice, we can do that in a skipped application state. If we've got one that just needs application and invoice, we can do it like that, and you manage that process. We've obviously got the scheduler dates around that. But once we've created all of these transactions and processing them, we're going to come out with our CVRs, our cost value reconciliations, potentially, and we'll have different types in there. And again, I'm going to show you some of these examples. One being, it's going to be a summary CVR where we put a simple cost and revenue adjustment, detailed CVRs, and different types. And then at the end of the day, we're going to end up with our management accounts once our CVRs have been approved and posted in the solution. And then obviously finance are going to look at more of the management reporting in terms of trial balances, P&Ls, balance sheet information. Some of those dashboards that we're seeing on Power BI then become relevant, all of those sorts of features. So that gives us an idea of some of the processes. So now what I'm going to do is really show you the solution and see what we'll get to see and show you what different role centers and some of the different transactions that you've got. Now, if people are asking questions, just ask them as we go along. I'll obviously not stop and answer the questions now. We'll try and answer them at the end or follow up. So if you think of something that you see when I do something, just ask that question at that point. Don't wait till the very end because you'll probably forget. Because I can see there's one or two people that just prompted a question. So the first thing is, like I said, this is a cloud solution. And how did I get into this? Because it's part of 365, just to show you, you'll see you'll have a Business Central icon in there, just like all the other things that you'll do. And in effect, you'll click on this and it'll log you in. Now, what it's doing here is because I'm in a demo environment, it's asking me which environment I want to log into. Normally, you wouldn't necessarily get this. You would just log straight in. And in effect, it'll present me with the role that I've been given in the business. And this particular role is like a commercial role. So you can actually see I get tiles, I get menu options, things that might be relevant to me. So I've got under the sales and contract sales, I've got transactions that we might do. I've got a subcontractor list of transactions that we might do. We've got tiles, the things that are relevant to me. You can see I've got red tiles that are linked into what needs to be approved within the system. You can see I've even got interactive charts that we talked about earlier on. So job, actual price to budget, profitability. I've even got the jobs that I'm working on. Now we do have job user access in EVision, so you can even restrict the jobs in the list to the ones that the QS works on, only if that's what you need to do. If you don't have to, but it's there. Again, if I scroll further down, you'll see, the Power BI that we want to use. And again, I can go and select from a whole library of reports. So if I just edit the list, because obviously I've got a few in here, and I'll just pull through some ones just for an example, so you can actually see what we're looking at from a Power BI. So these are, ones that I've published with Power BI, most CVRs. And if I close that, it'll open up the Power BI chart. And again, it's looking a bit small on there, so clearly I want to expand it out so I can see it on the screen. So this is giving me CVRs. And again, just to show you how it's interactive, you click on that, it filters the data so I can see historically, the CVR data in a Power BI chart if I wanted to see it. Now, it doesn't have to be Power BI, you could use other charts and other ways of doing it, but it's worth noting in terms of the access points. Now, this is obviously multi-company. It does do consolidation, it does do intercompany, and I can have more than one company open in multiple tabs. So if I'm working in a construction one, house building one, and a service one, I could have 3 tabs open under my login and work on them separately if I needed to, or I can just switch this way and the companies that I've got access to. And again, just to show you some of the different roles that they're in here, there's about 35 different roles, but you can see we can switch around role centers and you'll see the look and the feel changes relevant to that particular role. And in theory, this is why the personalization and you choosing what you want to do within the business. So your business manager, you can see I've got, a bit more finance information on here. I've got a list of purchase orders. If I click on a tile, they're interactive. They'll list me the 303 purchase orders I've got in the system. You'll see, like I said, because it's Microsoft, the standard options about opening in Excel. You can even have permissions and granted for certain areas where we can edit the data in Excel and publish it back into the system. And again, that's important because some finance might be doing journals, or you might be doing a big purchase order. You don't want to copy an order. you may just want to tweak something, they could work on it in Excel and publish it back in with some validation. So that is the power of the Microsoft elements. Now again, you'll see things down here like product videos of like how to do things in the system, like little actions that you maybe need to do, and again, insight, favorite performances, charts, some more finance information you can see in here that's relevant to there. And again, there's another Power BI chart. You can see this is, I think this is subcontractor performances or something like that, just to give you an idea of different types of charts that are available within the solution and what the role's seeing differently. Now, the approvals is obviously quite important, so we'll have a look at that in a little bit. But again, it's worth noting, the look and the feel is important. The app extension that I was talking about, just to show you that, because we're in the App Store, this is EVision in effect installed as the apps in here, and obviously there's some other standard ones that you get with Business Central, and some of the other products that we partner with are also available in here. But that shows you that it's a dedicated app. Now, just to help you with some of the basics of navigating around the solution, I'll do it as we go through some of the steps. So I'll look at the job and I'll show you how we can filter lists, hide columns, make them a little bit bigger, search for things, rather than do all the generic stuff. Now I'll go through some of the steps so you get a look at more of the software. But it is worth noting about the different types of access. So it is worth having a look at the tablet client. So again, I'll refresh that. And again, we'll actually see the same information, the same tiles, we can see the same lists. So we can have a look at suppliers, we can have a look at subcontractors, and again, we can actually see what's relevant to us. And again, you can switch the views around in terms of, you can look at it by tiles. If I click on it, we can look at a subcontractor card, because like I say, it depends on what you want to look at. Now, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to quickly connect up to my phone for you, just so I can show you what the phone client looks like, because remember, this also works on Android and iOS. And again, depending on how you've accessed this. So we'll just quickly show you that it's a physical Business Central app. And again, it's then going to prompt me with my 365 login. And then depending on your device, if you've got a fingerprint, for your password or whatever, it's just going to give you that. So just wait while it just signs back in. Now I've already signed in previously, so it's gone straight in. It's skipped the step. But you can see on my phone, I'm getting the same sort of tiles, the same bits of information of the rows that we've been looking at. If I scroll down here, I'll have the approvals. So again, just to show you on your phone, for doing an approval, you can click on it. I've got a purchase order that I need to approve. Well, that's not enough information, so I'll click on the 3 dots. I'll open up the record. So now I'm actually going to be looking at a purchase order on my phone. So I know the supplier, I know the job number, and just as I've done that, my phone's just rebooted itself. But you've got the idea that you can access it on the phone, and it'll give you, that capability anyway. Right. So we'll just go back and we'll look at the process that I was talking about with jobs, and look at the job setup and budgets, and then process, look at some of the transactions. And what we're going to look at now is I'm going to go back into the role center we had first, which is more commercial related. So we're going to look at, where is it? The EVision project manager type role center. And we'll just log in here. So in here, we're presented with more jobs. Now, I always start with this screen because most people on these sorts of calls are looking for this sort of information, and it's important to say it. First thing is, we can get cash position on the job, right? And you'll see these columns are consistent after cash, budget, cost and value, actual costs, committed order values, GRNs, subcontractor committed orders, total committed values, contract sales applied, certified and invoiced, etc. But the cash position works automatically. So when you process invoices or subcontractor payments, and when finance physically make the payment or a client pays you, it'll come back and update the job ledger. So you can see commercially if that transaction has actually been paid. So when you drill into it, you'll see, if I drill into the actual cost on Ipswich Hospital, none of these invoices have actually been paid or anything like that. So at the minute, they're all outstanding. We haven't been paid by finance. So we can actually see, that transaction has been paid. So you know yourself, if you need to make an adjustment or whatever, you can see it. Now, we'll also have parent and child capabilities for setting up jobs. But fundamentally, you'll have a job list and you'll have access to your jobs. Now, I was talking about filtered views and things like that, where you can save your own views, because that's given me all the jobs, but I've created one here specifically, and I've got one NED where I've got demo for 3 jobs. And what I've done basically, just to show you, is I've created it and I've applied a filter in there, and then I can actually come up here and I can actually save it underneath this. Oh, just apologies for this, team viewer. So there, that would allow me to save it. So you can create your own saved views. So the next time you log into the system, it's available and it's there. You can use it and you can utilize it of how you want to see the data. Now you can already see as I click on the jobs, we've got some high level information already. So I can actually see those numbers we've just been looking at before on the overview screen, the budget, cost and value, committed order values. Again, we can drill into all of these. We can use the ribbon bars at the top to go and do transactions or look at related information that's relevant to that particular job. So don't actually physically have to go into the records all the time. But if I pick up this job, it's worth noting before we look at the budget and things like that, we'll have what's called job tasks. So these are the work breakdown structure. So this is the level above cost codes, because we still have cost codes underneath this, the labour, plant, materials, subcontractors, whatever level you want to. But these structures could be different on a job by job basis. They're not fixed. They could be like, I've got something in here, or if I scroll to the next record with the arrow, you can see you could break it down in a bit more detail on that one, where it's breaking it down to those levels, but I'm breaking variations down as separate tasks to track them. I'll even be breaking down subby packages further as well. So if you're into that sort of thing and you break it down, you can do all of that. If we go the other way, you could just have a simple view of life of, just have prelims, contract works and variations as one line and manage the package. Now this box pops up, so you can see more on the screen, so you can hide the other elements. So it's worth noting, you can make it in focus mode. And again, we can copy and paste data into here. I could just come in and key it in. I could put a new line in there and say like 201, I don't know, extra work or something like that. So you can just key a new task in there and basically create it against it. So it's as easy as that. And again, I could populate that. Now, how did we get a budget in there? How do I have this in here? Because obviously I've got some budget numbers in, you can see. So there's a few ways we can get to this. We can go to the related, we can go to job, and we'll go to the job planner lines. Now, EVision allows you to have more than one budget. So in here, you can create as many budgets as you want. So I've set some examples up of the original tender, the current budget we're using, because maybe we're using the budget around, from a procurement point of view, where we've got the budget checker. So whether I warn or block people raising orders over the cost code value, not that sort of thing. So it's capable of doing that. So again, if I change this just to look at the current budget, you'll see the lines will probably, go to less. So I've actually not copied that one across. So they're all sitting on the estimate. Now, I can work on this in Excel. I can copy it out in Excel. I can even copy and paste it. I could even just, copy the lines from an Excel, as long as they're in the same structure and format, and paste them in, all right? Or I could physically come in here and key them in. You can see the information could be as much detail as you want, whether it's bill of quants, or it could just be a high level cost code budget. And again, you can put a quantity and a rate if you wanted to, both cost and value within the solution. So you can manage that. You can set it all up. So wherever the budget comes through, if it comes from our evaluate solution, evaluate auto creates the task lines and auto creates the job planner lines. Whereas if you're not using that solution, then obviously you will need to create them like I did, and obviously upload your budget or create a budget or copy a budget from the other places that you're creating. Now further down, it's worth just mentioning the bit I talked about earlier on. What type of contract sales transaction does it need? The usual dates are available around here. There's obviously other things that you might do in terms of if you do foreign trade. There's obviously CVRs. Does it need a CVR? Then we'll have analysis, and these are dimensions in EVision, and they are ways of slicing and dicing the data. So from an end report point of view, if I wanted to look at how much we've been spending in a certain region, that would be a dimension code. So every time I pick up that job, it stamps that code on it, whether who's processing an invoice, an order, or whatever. That gives us the analysis. And then you'll have EVision attributes. So these are custom fields where you can add in additional data that you want to store against the record for reporting purposes. And again, these aren't just text fields. There can be option, date, decimal. So there's some validation around that. Now, there's obviously lots on the job card to see, but I can't cover it all in the time we've got today. But it's worth seeing, for example, the scheduler dates, so your valuation schedule. So, if I want to record it, and I'll just show you, I'm updating the date. So if I fill it in there, it's auto-populating those dates based on the date range that I set under that section in terms of those fields that I'm setting there. So that's how it works that out. Okay. We can bill more than one client on the same job by using job task lines. So if you do extra work, rather than set it up as a separate job, we could bill it differently on the particular line if we needed to within there. And the other one is always worth showing because we want to look at a job where I've got some actual costs on those. So I'm just going to change it into this job. We actually have a cost code breakdown, and it's worth seeing this screen because everybody likes to see what the costs are to date and where you're up to in the process. So this is your cost code. So this is the level below the tasks, but I could filter the tasks if I want. But you'll see how it expands out and collapses out. And you can see I can go right down to the bottom level of my cost codes, but you'll also notice it's ignoring the zero cost code line. So if I've not had a transaction against that cost code, it doesn't show unless I tick it, and it'll bring them all back on. So you don't have to worry about oh, I've got loads of zero. No, that's not a problem for you. But again, these numbers are drillable. So you want to drill into the budget, you can drill in there. That'll take us into the planning lines that make up that budget. Again, if you want to look at the actual costs, so we've got 5,900 overall, 976 as subbies, 4,900 plant. We can drill in there. It's going to take the job ledger, so that makes up that transaction. Again, you're going to get to see, you can go back to all the way, and you can see anything that's linked to it. So if I go to find entities, technically will take me back to the source document, and if it's an invoice, it'll show the invoice on the screen if you're using the OCR capability. So there's different ways of navigating around the job. So that's a bit about the job setup, a bit about setting up budgets. And now let's just have a look at some of those three other transactions, maybe raising subby orders, purchase orders, and contract sales transactions, and then finishing on CVR and a little bit of reporting in the next few minutes to see how much I can get done for you in terms of the time we've got left. So let's just look at subcontractors first. So we do have a separate subcontractor ledger in EVision, and we do actually cater for all the CIS or RCT for the Irish subcontractors. We do deal with multi-trades, so if they've got more than one trade, we'll have trade limits. You have statuses that manage, what you're allowed to do within the solution, and you set your own statuses and even your own icons and allow what they can do within the solution. And just so you can see, we deal with all the billing methods, self-billing. We've done reverse charge VAT, MCD, levies, all those sorts of things are there. CIS, insurance details, all of those are standard features in EVision. And again, we can see, like you did on the job card, there'll be related subcontractor documents, multiple addresses, performance scoring management, history of documents that you've raised against that particular subcontractor. There'll be tiles down there that'll show us this information. But these are all subcontract orders that I've actually raised in the system against that subcontractor, and you can see there I've now actually physically gone into an order just by clicking from their card to see the information. And again, you can see you can just scroll through some of the orders in the system, and you can see the principle of this is it has a header, it has a line. We can break it down by trade on the line, subby package. You can have one line if you wanted to. We can have things called terms, which allows us to build up a structure of text to put on the output document of an order, so you can build it in there. Or you can use the word capability just so you can actually create like a JCT type format. And again, you'll see on here when I bring it up, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. It's worth noting that this JCT type format is like a 25-page document, which is obviously mail merged some of the fields out, but it shows you what you can do. Now, obviously, word layouts can be managed on other reports in the solution, but it's worth noting, that you can do this, so you don't have to have somebody creating a subcontractor order in a document outside of the solution that you're currently using. And again, you can see there it is there. If I zoomed in, it'll tell you the order number at the header. That's coming where we are in the solution. So you can see up there, got the name of the subby, the order number, the date of the order, all that sort of stuff. So that gives you an idea of what's happening with this and how we're going to raise sub orders. Now, in terms of managing the variations, this has obviously gone through an approval, and you can see across here, I've got columns that allow me to put variations in. These can be your column headings. I've just set them up as ways I can present it, but you can see the original order value is locked down because we've configured it to do that, but the variation isn't. So I could actually come in here and increase the spend of the variation. Now the budget checker is now going to come into play because I've got that functionality switched on. It's just a warning. At this stage, it could have been a block and somebody needs to increase the spend before it can be approved. And now this could go out for a new approval because it needs to be sent out. And if I've got approvals activated, it would tell me and it would send it. If I don't, it tells you haven't got approvals enabled on this part of the solution. So that is quickly raising subcontract orders. Just apologies, somebody's just at my door. Just 2 seconds.
Hello, while Sean's just getting his delivery, I think you see he's got there. I'll come back on. Is there anything specific that you'd like to see? Naturally, please do mention it in the question section. And of course, if there is time towards the end, we'll be delighted to show it. Maybe something in the commercial process, one of the slides that Sean showed earlier. And incidentally, if there is interest to look at one of our other solutions as part of our fully integrated portfolio that we have, Sean did touch on the fact that we have EValuate, which is our estimating and commercial management solution, which feeds the budget directly into EVision. We mentioned earlier as well, no rekeying of data, and a true one version of the truth. From a reporting perspective, you get live information to make crucial decisions based on reports of realism. And also the house building solution that we have, which as all of our solutions, 25 plus years of client input and development, and the 4 modules there, just to remind you: land, build, sales, and care.
Right, sorry about that. I'm back now.
You're back. Okay.
Right, so obviously I raised subcontract orders in there, and I showed you the JCT type format, but obviously you can also do subcontractor payments. We can do retention write-offs for any finance people on here, so you can write them off, and that's part of a transaction. We can record applications separately. We do have other solutions around that help with that as well. But just to show you a valuation screen, just quickly to give you an idea, if keying in an evaluation payment, you'll see we'll go and suggest and select the orders that I want to actually pay. So I'll go and get the order lines or the orders that I want to do. I'll not delete the ones I've got now, but you basically pull the orders through that you want. It's working cumulatively, so it gives us the information. You'll have the order value in terms of that. You're going to key in how much do you want to pay. And again, remember, these are the columns that we've seen on the order that can apply to the valuation. And again, it's going to work out, depending on the reverse charge VAT. If they're VATable, it's going to work out a tax deduction. Again, that can be recalculated. You can see this has got reverse charge VAT on there. We also have additional payment discounts on here as well from an EVision. So if you've negotiated, if I pay you this week, can I have a small discount off in these years, 10%, which is different to your normal MCD or other levies or anything like that. And again, this screen shows cumulative and movement. So again, it's up to you there. If you're doing payment practices, it'll record the payment receipt date or the transaction receipt date for that sort of functionality if you require that. And again, we can obviously attach documents, we can go through an approval, and we can post it and then basically let finance pay it. But just to give you an idea that the screen is there and the capabilities of what it does on that side of things. Now, in terms of the purchase ordering side of things, there's multiple ways to do this. We've got quotes, we've got blanket call-off orders. we can create an item library. You know, we can have stock items. We can have the items that we're just ordering purely for a job, which has got a cost code on. So there's lots of ways of doing this. And if I did a new one from scratch, I can copy a previous order. I can paste it in from Excel. You know, I can use even templates. So if I start typing like wall text in here, you know, and pick up the job number that I'm going to use, you can see when I type it in, it doesn't need to be the full bit. I can just search. If I'm task coding it to certain codes, you know, depending on what I do, I'll just set this to materials. I'm not going to key any lines in because I've got these recurring lines, which is the templates I'm talking about. So, you know, there's different ways you can do this. I can pull this through, you know, and it'll put the lines in with the quantities and rates depending on if you've set prices up. And this one has, so it's got the values in there, so it's come through. And I can just tweak the quantity going, oh, well, actually I only need 5 of those. You know, I could go and say, you know, in the budget checker now kicking in. And again, from a budget point of view, it'll flag the line. So that one has got a tick box so you can actually see it. But again, we can go and select items, and you know, all of those options are available. So this is an item library, and I know I'm going really quick now just to try and give you a flavour of it. But you know, there's items on there, so I might say I want, you know, one of those, and one of those, and I don't want that one, so get rid of that. And it'll pull those 3 lines on top of the 3 that I've got in there, so I can build a purchase order quite quickly. I can obviously go through an approval if I needed to in there if there's an approval set up, but it's within my authority, so you can see that status has gone to released. I then obviously probably maybe need to email it out, you know, so from this point of view, I can set up a template and manage the template in the solution, you know, but I might want to, you know, create something in here or allow me just to manipulate. This is just about if I'm having copies out and stuff like that. So depending on what you'll do, it'll log the output of the email. But in theory, this template is what I'm talking about there, the PDF of the order report out, you know, the contact information from the supplier. You can have multiple contacts. I could even just go and add another one in here. I can also, just so we're aware of it, just go to some attachments, see if we've got any on here a second quickly. I can drag and drop other things in here. So you're not like restricted. So if you've got like something to go with a backup to go with that purchase order that you want, you can drag and you can drop it on there and it'll attach it in there as well. And you can add as many of those as you want. And then we can obviously physically send it out of the solution. So it'll send it out now and we'll probably see the email. But you'll see it's now also created a log. And there's the email coming through to me right now. So that's not just on purchase orders, that's on obviously lots of the output documents. But you can see there's the email gone out with the PO, you know, and the attachment that I put with it and the body of the email based on how you've configured it, and just to give you a look and a feel of a basic purchase order. But these are the sorts of things you would cover off. But it gives you an idea of, you know, the output. And again, just so you know, from this bit, you could even go and see the email. So, you know, so you can actually go back and see that email body that I did. So if I did actually had manual text on top of the standard template, which I could have done, it's available, you can see it. So that gives you a little bit about that. Now, if my phone hadn't just crashed before, the next bit in terms of the JRN process, I would have showed you on my phone, because I would be able to show you how I can take a picture of the ticket. But I'll just show you the role set and just conscious of the time as well. So we do have a site manager role within the solution, and you'll see this will be stripped right back in just to purely requisitions and delivery notes. You know, so this is why they could use their phone or the tablet on site. You know, they can see what they want to do within the solution. You can see I've got tiles in terms of counts of things that we're maybe doing, outstanding GRNs or anything like that. But fundamentally, this is designed really to be really simple. So, you know, the supplier can pick the job number that he's working on. You know, so there's just those 3 jobs. They can then go and pick, you know, what order numbers or what suppliers are on that one. So we've got, you know, the Woolsey one I can pull through. And you can see it's filtering the data down, so it's making it simple. So the site manager hasn't got to try and filter through thousands of data. And then obviously, what's the ticket number? It will validate the ticket number. So it'll then show me the lines off the purchase order. And again, you know, it'll say, right, well, how many do you want to receive? You know, I want to receive one of those. If I've got any comments, 1 damaged, or something like that, you can key that in there. And again, at this point, this is where I was saying if I had my phone, I could obviously take a picture of the ticket, or I could just do an attachment manually here on my web client and select it if I'm using it that way. But it's there. And again, I could then post that GRN into the system or go through an approval process. And that makes an accrual on the cost code breakdown screen that we see in the beginning. But again, you can see how this is designed to be really simple from a site perspective, but allow them to give you a proper three-way match rather than wait for site to send a manual ticket in the office, finance to do it. But we've now basically gone through and posted a delivery note. They can look at ones that they've just posted through the system so they can go back and see them, as well as part of that process so we can actually see the order number that I've received in the ticket. So they've got all of that capability within that part of the solution. So that's obviously quite important for giving access to site into helping with the process of managing that. So if we just go back to me EVision project manager, now obviously actually I might go into, because I've just touched on this for something actually, the OCR element from a finance, just to finish the three-way match off. Where's my role center for that one? Couldn't see if I'm looking right underneath the one I wanted. So I'm not going to go through all the steps on this, but basically the invoices get emailed into a queue and they get processed in here. But just to give you a flavour of what it can do, we'll actually see the image of the invoice in the screen. So you'll see here's a list of invoices and the actual images of the invoices are visible. Finance manage this and they manage the template of how it scrapes and how it maps the fields. They can direct it, they can match the lines, they can match it to that GRN that we've just done. So there's a whole process way of doing it. But also commercially or anybody else, it does have full document search capability. So if you wanted to search for something, if it was something to do with Speedy, you could search for it and it'll find anything with that field that you put in. So I've got a document there. I could even show the original email that the invoice or that document come in, and my browser's just blocking that. So I'll just get past that step. And then that'll take me back into the Outlook. So that was the email of the invoice coming through the solution. So, it just shows you can do it. And again, if you want to see the file or the attachment, I'll go to the document card, we'll see it on the screen side by side. But if you think about when I was talking about cost code and drilling down to the costs, if I navigate it back from the invoice, I'll get to this screen, I'll see the invoice with invoice information. So it's worth noting that. Now, it isn't just OCR, just to clarify, there can also be XML. But it's worth noting that that three-way match is available as part of the solution. And then obviously finance would pay the invoices. There's all those standard finance features that you would expect with any solution. So if I just go back into that project manager and then just quickly look at contract sales for you, and then obviously CVRs, and we'll give you a quick finish on that, I think, because I'm running out of time here, to be honest. So contract sales, we'll have different ways of billing this. You're seeing that we're set on the job, but we can actually create, when you win a job, what's called a contract sales order. And this is the way you can set it up, whether it's a summary level, one-liner, or whether it's broken down. It's purely up to you. And again, I'll just show you an example. We wrote down something as simple as that. It could be complex, multiple lines. It could be, something like that to match the task codes that you've set up. But you might even have ones with bill of quants where it really goes to the nth degree. And again, you don't have to have them as contract sales orders. There could be job planner lines where we'll put the budget in. There could be billing lines for contract sales purposes. There's different ways of doing it, but fundamentally you need a sort of transaction to start with. Now, if you looked at our Evaluate product, that does all of this for you anyway. But again, it's just if you've got to have commercial login and creating the transactions, we'll have it in there. Now, remember what I said at the beginning, you choose what type it needs, an application, a certificate, or an invoice. We'll obviously have the credit side of those off. So if you've got a credit of any of them out, but how the process works, we can see, we'll go back into this job, the number 10 we'll look at this time. So how the process is, you'll go and get either the contract sales orders are the job planner lines. And when we get the order lines, you'll see it shows you all the lines that are relevant, but it'll also show you importantly what's been applied, what's been certified, what's been invoiced to date, and allow you to set a percentage complete, right? So you can, you can select all the lines, and we can actually see, that's set at 25% complete. I could even flag one particular task as complete if I needed to, and pull those lines through. And again, this will work on cumulative or movement, but again, I can also amend this, right? So if it come through and I'd realized, oh, I've done that wrong, it was 25%, it should have been 20%, I could amend the percentage on the line, or I could just change the gross amount manually and say, well, actually, it should have been 25, and amend it. That's the 25 movement, that's the date 40. So I can amend it. And again, if you've done a backup document, which a lot of commercials do, which maybe needs to be a bit more detailed, you can attach it in here. We can approve it. We can go and post it, and it'll hit the contract sales ledger and show the applied amount on the job. And that'll give you that. And again, if we did a certificate or an invoice, it's the same process. It's just the document type will say a certificate or invoice. It's the same as what we do. If we do variations of separate orders, the variation order can also be put onto the same application, certificate or invoice. So you can add them in and control variations, the separate orders, and not have to amend the original contract value. So you can manage it all in there. So it gives you a little touch on contract sales. So that leaves you like a couple of minutes just to touch on CVRs to finish that commercial process off, really. So like I said, we'll have different types of CVR, and we'll have a lot of standard columns that everybody has on a CVR. The budget, cost and value, committed, accruals, actual cost to date, applied, certified and invoiced. And then you'll have a cost adjustment and a revenue adjustment. So these are standard columns, but we'll also give you that capability of building your own additional columns into the setup. So you can have 20 additional columns, and you can see I've added in anticipated final value and cost, but I'm also making it a formula, so it'll add up some of the standard columns or some of the customized columns into the equation. So I don't have to manually put this number into the solution. It's working it out. And again, you can see, whatever you want to do, however you want to set them up, you can see I've just got examples in here. Is it a formula? Is it a percentage calculation? Maintaining the balance means, do you want to see what the balance was on that particular column next month? So it was 5,000 last month, it's now 6,000 a day. So obviously there's been 1,000 movement in the period. So you're managing that, right? And what we're finding now is a lot of people, will use different types. Now, if we look at the summary CVR, all of the columns are standard across all the types of CVR, so they're consistent, right? But these are 3 jobs that require CVR. Now, EVision will take a snapshot of the data for the period that we're working on, right? So if finance then still put invoices on, or somebody puts something else in the system, it isn't going to impact on the numbers that I'm working on unless I decide to physically recalculate it, which would update the number because it's a snapshot. But underneath this job, if I expand it out, this will just go to those job tasks. And this would now allow me to put a simple adjustment in, whether it was revenue or whether it was a cost adjustment in at that task line level. Now, what we've found is people would, practice-wise, they might say, oh, well, look, I don't want to break it down to this. I just want to put it in on one liner. So they have a task for CVR adjustment purposes only where they can key it in. Now, the other element of this is, well, Sean, what's the £75,000 for, right? And again, you can move your columns around. You can put comments in, so there's that bit to help the user, why I made the adjustment, what it relates to. So it's stamped with the transaction, stored against the CVR. So any approver are looking at it can go, all right, yeah, okay, I've got why you've put that in, etc. And again, once you've done all of this and you've got your high level, you'll see, those additional columns, the anticipated final value, all of those ones are working out. Any manual adjustment columns that, that I want to key in, I can key in, so again, it'll allow me to key a number into those columns. I can go and complete it. It can go through an approval. We can post it as a reversing journal for finance to hit the management accounts. So we've got it. And again, remember, this would be restricted by job user access. But there's different types of CVR as well. There's a detailed one and there's a consolidated consolidated report. So a detailed one will go to task and then cost code allow to put the adjustment into that level. A the consolidated one, I'll just say we'll look at one task code and then put the adjustment in at the cost code level. So have I got the detailed one? I can't see that, but I can search for it, so you can see how I can search for detailed CVRs within the solution. And again, just to show you what it looks like. So this looks different to the screen we've got because it's only one job. So then instead of the lines being by task, like I said, they'll be down under the tasks to cost code level. So I went under the prelim task, you can see I've got my cost code ranges there, and you can see it's the same. I can expand and collapse it till I get to the level that's, you know, I need to put an adjustment in on here. Again, so if I need to put an adjustment under the joiner line, you know, I can scroll across here, whether it was a revenue adjustment or whether it's a cost adjustment, it'll allow me to key that figure in there so I can stamp the data. Now, clearly, you maybe, you know, process some of your subcontractor valuations they did before. You can also record the liabilities because we can then use the subcontractor adjustment capability, you know, to any of the valuations that were processed, pull those liabilities, which will automatically put those on the relevant lines within the detailed CVR, so I don't have to key those ones in. So I really only need to do my adjustments on the value side of things, or maybe just materials and plant and labour. My subcontractor ones will come from me adjustment screen. And again, the same as before, we can, you know, approve it, complete it, and create the journals from this. And there is another option about some transitioning where we do give the capability of using an Excel spreadsheet, checking the data out, working on the numbers offline, checking it back in, and having a version control where you can store that Excel workbook into the system against it within the solution, and you can next month you can see, you can check it out again and work on that. So there is that capability. So it'll give you an idea of what you're looking at. So I've probably only got a couple of minutes left. So there's just a couple of things I want to just show you that I didn't get to show before with integration with Teams and Outlook, because it is important that you understand about this sort of technology. And again, what I've done in this particular one, I'm using not the Microsoft Business Central workflow. We are using, I'm just going to put a figure in here for a second just to make sure my workflow works. So I'm going to use this. So obviously you can see I've got an invoice with the image there. I'm going to send an approval request, and it's the status of this one's gone to pending approval. Now, what this is also doing, and you're going to see, I'm going to get a little notification up there in Teams. So it's now populating up in Teams because I'm using a Microsoft Flow. So it's telling me the information. So if I was in Teams, oh look, purchase invoice for electronics needs to be approved. The emails also come into play, right? So again, you know, depending on which way you want to go with it, excuse me, you can say you can either get it through Teams or you can get it through email, and again, you can go and approve it or take it into that record to have a look at it. However you want to do it, you know, it gives you the idea of that, you know, it's fully integrated. You know, you can see I've got all of that. It'll even come back and tell me when I approve it. If I hit approve, you know, obviously I would have done more than just hit approve. I would have validated it first. You know, that'll flag that I've done that approval. If I come back into the record in EVision and refresh it, the status then gets updated. You see, I'm even getting the notification that I've now approved it because I've set the workflow up to do that. But you can disable that if you don't want to be notified. But you know, that's now released it. So you see the invoice is now being approved as quick as we've talked about it. So it's worth noting that. And then the last bit I just wanted to show you is the Outlook integration. So in here, obviously my email address is in here. They've got the insight. So this is, you know, within EVision, I can see information relevant to that contact. But we can also create purchase orders. So I've got like a conversation going on. You know, maybe quoted some items from a supplier and now want to go and convert them to purchase order. What it'll do is it'll use some artificial intelligence. So it will try and read what's in the email body, what we've been talking about. And if the actual items exist in the item library, it'll suggest that we'll add those, do we want to add those items into a purchase order. So like here, it's identified the word external, and I've got an item called external in the system. So it's suggesting, oh, is that what you're talking about? Do you want to add that into the purchase order? Yes, I do. So clicking that button now, it will actually go and add it into the purchase order. So I've now got a purchase order created from Outlook in EVision for that particular item, and I can process it like we did before. So hopefully that's give you a good idea of what we've done. So I'll pass back to Joe for this last bit here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. I just thought I'd let everyone know we have a few attendees on. We're not going to get to questions right now because of time, but I will be contacting each of you individually. Hopefully we can get to speak this week or next. And any questions you have, we can cover them or share as much information about us and the solution as I can. And if you have a particular project that's in the lab now or potentially on the radar, we can discuss that also. If I don't get to speak with you, I'll send you an email and perhaps we can arrange to speak. But for now, thank you very much for attending.